the 31st of December 1921, we have a man by the name of Henry Errington and his daughter, who are looking up and down these alleyways across the way, looking for used bottles. Now, directly across here, unfortunately it's no longer there, would have been Gun Alley. When they entered Gun Alley, what they spied was a 12-year-old girl who'd been raped and murdered and left naked laying on the ground. They would notify police and they would come back. They would realise very quickly that it was the body of 12-year-old Alma Tirschke, who had been reported missing the day before. She had been sent by her grandmother. She was living with her grandmother with her younger sister Viola in Dollymont, and she'd been sent on an errand. Her mother had passed away a few years earlier and her father was working in the mine. They were going to go and join him in the new year. What the task was that she was given is to go to a butcher shop in Swanson Street, pick up a package and take it to an address in Collins Street, which is her aunt's house. She picked up the package, she left there at about 1:30 p.m, and that was the last time she was really seen alive. She never made it to her aunt's house. Now, there's been a variety of witness reports of seeing her during her walk. They would see her walking down Burke Street, and she seemed to be quite afraid. She was constantly checking behind her as if somebody was following her, but no one saw anyone else. She would cut through the Eastern Arcade that we were talking about before, and in the Eastern Arcade was a shop called the Australian Wine Saloon that was run by a man by the name of Cokin Campbell Ross. Now, Ross had been in trouble with the police just a few weeks earlier. In fact, his licence was about to be revoked on the 1st of January. So he was in his final days of trade. The reason that the police had objected to his liquor licence is the fact that some of his workers were rolling some of the customers while they were on site, and they decided that this wasn't on. There'd also been one where he'd been arrested for assaulting a customer as well. So this is the reason they were shutting it down. Now, Ross said that he did see Alma Tirschke walk through the Eastern Arcade and out the other side. And it kind of does tally with some of the witness statements that said that they heard screaming coming from behind the abandoned Adam and Eve Hotel, which was across the road. But this seems to have been ignored by the police. They would eventually arrest Cokin Campbell Ross for the rape and murder of Alma Tirschke. This was done on the back of some testimony from some kind of dubious people. One of them was Ivy Matthews, who was an ex-employee of his, who would say that she'd been his business partner. She wasn't. She was a prostitute who happened to be working as a barmaid. And he had sacked her, so there wasn't really good grounds there. There was also a couple of other people. There was a gentleman in jail who would say that Cokin Campbell Ross had confessed all to him, despite the fact that he was in jail for perjury. And of course, he was really, really believable. But the reason the police would have done this is, like even today, if you have something that's a really high-profile case in the newspapers, then the pressure is on the police to solve it and solve it quickly. We need to put the blame on someone. And that blame was put on Cokin Campbell Ross. Now, he protested his innocence all the way through. From the very day he was arrested, he said, I had nothing to do with this. His mother would talk about her issues with the police. The police said, he's innocent, you've got nothing to worry about. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. He would be found guilty and he was sentenced to hang. And he actually did hang on the 22nd of April 1922 at the Melbourne Gaol. Now, quite a significant time later, over 80 years later, we have a researcher, much like myself and Roy, who was going through the trial notes at the Public Record Office. What he discovered was the hair evidence that had been used to convict Cokin Campbell Ross. At the time, this was looked at by the government analyst, who stated that the hair was identical to those on Alma Tirschke's head. With modern forensics and being able to use DNA, it was tested and found to be synthetic fibres. It did not come from Alma Tirschke. With that, it went to the government, but it would take 10 years before he was pardoned. He wasn't exonerated, he was pardoned. Now, the really cool thing that I love about this story is that when that pardon happened, Alma's sister Viola was 100 years old and she was still alive. She was actually there to witness the handing back of the pardon at the old Melbourne Gaol. They had relatives from both families there, which is really good. But it does leave the question that has never been answered as to who did actually murder